All right, if you're studying relationship psychology, you're in the right place. Think of this as your ultimate study guide. We are going to break down the neurobiology and the behavioral psychology of female romantic attachment. Let's get you prepped for that exam.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the biological foundations of love. Then, we'll track that chemical journey from the initial infatuation all the way to attachment. After that, we'll get into the real-world signs of commitment you can actually see. And finally, we'll touch on the other big factors that shape this whole process.
So, first up, the blueprint of her love. To really get this, we have to start with the core premise. You see, love isn't just some random, fuzzy feeling. Nope, it's a powerful and honestly, a predictable biological program that's hardwired right into our brains. In this image right here, it illustrates the whole journey perfectly. You can see on the left, we've got the brain chemistry. That's the biological blueprint. And then on the right, you see how all that chemistry actually translates into the path to deep attachment? Keep this map in your head as we go.
Okay, here is a point you'll definitely want to highlight for your exam. The drive to love and to bond is rooted in the very same primitive part of our brain that handles our basic survival needs, like hunger and thirst. It's not a luxury, it's a fundamental process, and it's driven by a very specific cocktail of neurochemicals.
So let's move on and see how this all gets started. It begins with an intense, and I mean really intense, chemical cocktail. We're talking about the infatuation stage.
In these early stages of attraction, the brain is just flooded with these three key chemicals. You've got dopamine giving you that high, that euphoric craving. Then norepinephrine comes in and sharpens your focus on that one person. And then there's serotonin, which, you'll see, does something pretty counterintuitive.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. It's this push and pull between dopamine and serotonin. While the dopamine is making you feel amazing, like you're on top of the world, your serotonin levels are actually dropping. And that drop, that's the key to understanding that obsessive, kind of lovesick feeling of new love.
And here's a definition to jot down in your notes. That drop in serotonin is precisely what causes that can't stop thinking about him feeling. It actually mimics the chemical profile of obsessive-compulsive behavior. That explains why someone might find themselves rereading texts over and over, or just constantly daydreaming. But, that intense, obsessive high, it can't last forever. Our brains know this. And if the connection is a good one, the brain's chemistry starts to shift. It begins to prioritize a totally different goal, long-term attachment.
The renowned anthropologist Helen Fisher gives us a fantastic model for this. She breaks the whole journey down into three clear stages. First, there's lust, which is all about sex hormones. Second is attraction. That's the dopamine-fueled high we just talked about. And third is the super important attachment stage, where a new chemical, oxytocin, takes the lead. And that brings us to our next key term, oxytocin. You've probably heard it called the cuddle hormone. Its job isn't about creating a high. Its role is to build the deep foundations of a relationship. We're talking emotional safety, trust, and the kind of attachment that leads to stability and nurturing in the long run.
This is such a critical point. It really shows the difference between the attraction phase and the attachment phase. The foundation of lasting love, especially for many women, isn't just about that fleeting euphoria from a dopamine hit. It's about a profound, growing sense of emotional safety, of being truly seen and valued for who you are.
Okay, this is the core of our exam review right here. How does that chemical shift from dopamine to oxytocin actually show up in the real world? What are the observable, actionable signs of real commitment?
So the behaviors we're about to cover, they aren't just random things people do. They are the direct, tangible evidence that the brain is moving from attraction into attachment, from a dopamine high to an oxytocin bond.
All right, let's really break down this checklist, because this is where theory becomes practice. First, sharing vulnerabilities. This isn't just small talk. It's opening up about deep fears, secrets, dreams. That's a clear sign of massive trust. Next, future integration. She starts using the word we for plans way down the road, or talks about what-if scenarios that always include you. That is a huge signal. Then, mental prioritization. When she remembers the little things, like your coffee order or a story you told weeks ago, that means you're taking up significant real estate in her mind. She also becomes a rock of consistent emotional support, your biggest cheerleader. And this is a big one. Watch for social and personal sacrifice. Introducing you to our family, making real compromises for the relationship, that's serious. Finally, Physical affection starts to go way beyond sex. She initiates cuddling, holds your hand in public. These are all oxytocin-driven bonding behaviors. These are the markers of real commitment.
Some interesting research also shows a difference in how often love is felt. One study found that women report feeling love in about 4% of their daily moments versus about 2.3% for men. Now, this could be because women often spend more time actively nurturing bonds with both partners and kids.
And neurologically, this stage is fascinating. The brain fires up something called mirror neurons, which help us empathize and feel what others are feeling. This is what creates that profound sense of synergy, of being in sync. You know, that feeling where you can finish each other's sentences?
Okay, finally, and this is absolutely crucial if you want a top grade. You have to remember that this biological blueprint isn't the whole story. Think of it as the architecture, but our individual and cultural factors, they're the interior designers.
One of the biggest influencing factors is our own individual psychology, specifically the attachment style we developed in childhood. Whether someone is secure, anxious, avoidant, or fearful is going to dramatically change how they express and experience this universal biological program.
And it's not just our personal psychology. Culture, upbringing, and just life experience all shape how love gets expressed. For instance, in some cultures, love is demonstrated more through acts of service and duty rather than big, grand romantic declarations.
So, if we had to boil all of this down to one key takeaway, the ultimate psychology hack, it would be this. Fostering emotional safety is what matters most. Being consistent, being emotionally available, and reciprocating vulnerability. That's what naturally triggers the good-feeling chemistry of oxytocin and builds a bond that lasts. And we'll leave you with this question to chew on, maybe for your essay portion. If love is such a powerful biological program, how much conscious choice do we really have in who we fall for? It's a really fascinating intersection of biology and free will. Good luck with your studies.